What is going on YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. And today, we're taking a look at the Season 2 God releases. This is probably the most OP season of releases that Smite has ever seen. All these characters have at one point been the best character in their class, or one of the best, won worlds with them. All these characters are broken. Not currently, but like when they were released, they were considered broken. So probably the most OP class of all time. Like if you played during these times, you're like, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. Let's just jump right in with Bellona. Bellona, when she was released, she was considered one of the most like OP God releases of all time. She could legitimately 1v5 and win games. All of her abilities since her release have been nerfed, and they've been nerfed, and they've been nerfed, and they've been nerfed, and they've been nerfed, and she's still absolutely just running games. Season 3, she was played. Season 4, she was played. Season 5, 6, and 7, when blessings were in the game, she was pretty weak because her character was kind of designed around like Death Toll, and she's lost that Death Toll. She didn't really fit well with Warrior's Blessing. But when Season 8, Season 9 came out, blessings were removed, starter items were put back into the game. Bellona started becoming an absolute menace again because she got her baby back. She got her Death Toll back. Bellona's also got a very fun kit. She's very unique in the fact that you use one of your 3 abilities and it brings you out a different weapon that changes how you play the game with her. Like early game, her bludgeon's OP because you clear the wave. Late game, her 1's OP because you can't trade with her as a hunter, so you have to have your mage killer. Her 3 is OP at all points of the game because you literally can't auto for a couple seconds. Bellona is probably the biggest solo laner of all time. When you think of solo laners, Bellona's got to be the one that comes to mind. No other solo laner kind of compares to what she has meant to the game. They made a trailer about her. She is kind of Smite's baby. Bellona is kind of Smite, and when we think of Smite, it's like Thor, and then it's probably like Bellona as like the next one. Next up is Puch. Probably the most underwhelming god on this list, and he still won a Worlds with Splice in Season 5. When Puch was released, he was pretty good. He got nerfed a little bit, and then he kind of wasn't played for a bit. He is not the most fun character, in my opinion. He's cool to watch, I think, because he's this very boomer bust mage that a lot of other mages seem to not be nowadays. You get a lot of safe mages. Gods that power farm, gods that want to fight early, they can fight early, and Puch just isn't really that. He's more of a late game monster, very hard to deal with in the late game, and then a lot of area damage. But he did end up winning a Worlds in Season 5 with Maz Wall on him, and I think Maz was really the only one that played him. So even when he won Worlds, he was only really played by that team. By comparison, he's probably just a bad character because he's only seen one big playtime amount. He's very cool to watch. He's very cool to play still, in my opinion. But by comparison, I just can't have him any higher because of how just limited playtime he's had at the SPL level. Next up is Medusa. I was still on console when Medusa came out, and she would just absolutely ravage every game she was in. I would get stunned 95 times a game, and it's all because of her ult and me trying to turn, and I can't turn fast enough. So to me, Medusa's release was a lot more OP than others probably see it as. I'm going to put her a little bit higher probably than others because me playing against her, she ravaged me. I gotta give her due respect because of that. I'm gonna throw her an average character, even though I think there could be a case of her being made into bad character. She's been played in the SPL a good amount, Season 2, Season 3, and then she did see a little bit of a resurgence earlier this year and the end of last year. She saw a little bit more play. Her damage was pretty high. She was pretty safe. She'd kind of just one-shot you if she was able to get on top of you. She hasn't seen too many nerfs. A lot of her nerfs were just like outright damage nerfs where she was just doing way too much damage on release. In Season 2, Season 3, she was played in mid lane by Yaman. She's pretty cool to watch. She's not like super cool, super boring, but overall she's a pretty average character, and I mean, I'm glad she's in the game. Next up is Ratatoskr, and before I say anything about it, he's probably got one of the, 5, maybe 6 rekits in the game. So let's take a little look at this. So when Rat was released, he was released with these 4 different acorns, and they would just do different things to kind of mesh with his kit. The green acorn would heal him. This one would stun. This one would crit. This one would, I can't even remember what the last one was.
First up is his 1. It's called Dart. Ratatoskr dashes in the target direction, dealing damage.
So instead of stopping on the rat or the god that he's dashing into, Rat would actually go through them, and he could do this for one enemy on like a 15-second cooldown. So in a team fight, he could dash through one enemy, dash through another, dash through another, dash through another, and then he would have like one more dash to get out. So you'd see Rat just sprinting around team fights and just 1v5ing, and it was so cool. And this is probably one of my least favorite changes that Smite's ever made. It's because they just made his kit a lot more boring. It used to be so unique and cool, and now it's kind of just like a Thor ripoff almost.
To all enemies along the way. If Ratatoskr strikes an enemy god he has not struck with Dart in the last 10 seconds, the cooldown is actually reset. His second ability is called Flurry of Acorns. Ratatoskr spins in a circle, shooting 12 acorns out in a circle around him that freeze in the air briefly, then return to wherever Ratatoskr is currently at, dealing damage on the way out and the way back.
So instead of just doing that little flurry of damage around you, it would do this where you threw the acorns out, and then you would dash through somebody, and then the acorns would all pierce through that enemy that you just dashed through, and it would just do loads of damage. And he was like a pretty good burst character with that.
Ratataskr's 3 is called Acorn Blast.
His 3 is kind of a same thing. It just didn't stun unless you bought a certain acorn that stunned it.
The Sapphire Acorn changes Acorn Blast. Acorn Blast now becomes a shotgun blast of sticky grenades. They will stick to the target and deal damage on the initial hit and on the secondary explosion. The Emerald Acorn also changes Acorn Blast. It will now heal for the number of targets you hit with this ability. If you dash through someone twice, it will now stun your target. The Opal Acorn also changes Dart. Dart will now shoot lightning bolts to targets you pass by during the dash, but doesn't fill the area with damage. It will apply on-hit effects like crits, though.
That was probably his most OP acorn, but it was just so, like, old Rat was so cool. I'm just so sad that they changed it and just made him a different character, because, like I said, they kind of just made him a more Thor-ish character. But looking at Rat as a whole, he was a very good addition. When he was added into the game, he was OP. If he wasn't banned, you had to pick Fenrir, and if Fenrir was banned and the other team didn't ban Rat, so you just had a free Rat, he would just run rampant. Divios would play him in solo lane with the heal acorn, and then he'd be played in the jungle with that lightning acorn, and he was so cool to watch. He was a bit unbalanced, and I think they never thought they could balance him, actually, because he did see a lot of nerfs. But I wish they would have just made him even worse and then kept his old kit, because his old kit was so cool to watch. Once he was reworked, he was still played a lot. His kit was very OP. He was basically just made into this better Thor. His ult would just knock up. His 3 would stun. His 2 would just do loads of damage. He was played in solo and jungle, same as old Rat, but his dart would just stop on the first enemy hit. Rat overall hasn't really been meta-defining too often. There's been a few times where Season 8, Laz would play him a lot, and he would win a lot of games on him, look really good. When he was reworked originally, he was very, very strong. But I don't think I can put him any higher than average character, just because I think he's not as cool as he used to be, and it makes it so it feels bad to put him any higher. He's definitely not a bad character because he's seen so many good metas, and he's meta-defined a couple times. And he was just so cool to watch for that year, 2 years when he was released that I have to stick him an average character. Next up is Khepri, another game-defining character. Up until Yamoja, Khepri is probably the most OP release Smite has ever seen in terms of support. His ult used to heal you for like 70%. It used to give you power. It used to give you more movement speed. His 2 used to be like 50% mitigation instead of 30%. His 3 and his 1 haven't changed too much, but his 2 and his ult through his entire lifetime have just been so OP. And like I said, up until Yamoja release, he was considered kind of the best, the most needed support on a team. If you weren't picking him, you were banning him. If you weren't first pick, you were kind of banning him because you didn't want first pick to have him. He's seen a couple metas where he wasn't that great, but still he defines the game. He defines support. He's a very supportive character. Raffer was really good with him. Jeff Hinlow was very good with him. The Eonics, all these good supports that you can think of were just animals with Khepri. Polar Bear Mike, and now you're seeing Genetics this year, Ronnie. Everyone can play Khepri because he's such a meta-defining, game-defining character. And he is the most nerfed character of all time. Like, that is a fact. He has seen more nerfs than any other character. Maybe, I guess, Yamoja might have just passed him up, but up until very recently, he was the most nerfed character of all time. So we got to give him his dues. We got to put him in game-defining. Next up is Ravana, another rework, that's the word. Another rework character. Ravana was probably considered the worst release of all time in Smite. He never was really played. He was considered a troll pick if you picked him. Honestly, he was just super underwhelming, and he wasn't even that fun to play either. Actually, I can't put him in bad character, because once his rework came out, he became a very viable character. He was just played in the jungle instead of in solo lane. He saw a little bit of play in solo lane after he was reworked. And I think he was even reworked the year he was released. Like it was that quick because he was so underwhelming and so bad. Eventually, he just started getting played in the jungle, and that led to him actually becoming reworked as a jungler instead of a warrior. He just got big buffs this patch, 9.5, and you saw solo play him in solo lane, or solo or troll play him in solo lane. He's starting to get a lot of play, and he's becoming a very, very good character, and you've even been seeing him banned. However, he hasn't really been that unreal. He's seen some metas where he's been very good, adapting metas. Maybe we put him in great character just because he's seen some metas where he's been better than these three. So by comparison, he's got to be a great character. And there were some jungle metas where it was just pick Ravana or lose. So we'll throw him in great character because of that, and we'll move on to the Xing Tian. So Xing Tian on release was OP as heck. In Season 2, he was winning you rank games, winning you comp games, and he was first picked in a lot of Worlds games. He was the only character in solo lane that could rival the Bellona. You saw some like Sobek just to like make it so Bellona wouldn't stomp the lane. But Xing Tian was one of the few characters that could actually fight into the Bellona and then do just as much as her late game also. Sobek didn't have that. Sobek could kind of manage her early game and then get to late game and then just hope his team did more than the Bellona could. Xing Tian has not really been too OP since Season 2, Season 3, but he was so good in Season 2 and Season 3 that I think we have to put him in great character. He's a really cool character to watch when he is getting played because he just has so much actual like pick potential, so much team play. He's one of the few characters that actually has auto attack reduction in his kit, which I think is actually super cool. In a late game team fight, if you blink and you just won the enemy ADC, and then once your one is done, you kind of just CC him a little bit more, you're keeping a character out of the game by yourself 100%. And I think that is super cool and super fitting for Xing Tian. And I like that personally about him. Next up is Sol. Probably the lamest character, in my opinion, ever released. When she was released, she was taking your towers by herself at like 5 minutes. There are so many videos out there where you can go back to just release Sol gameplays, and it's just them autoing the tower for like 80 at level 3. Her passive was so obnoxious, she could just one-shot towers if you died one time. You would be 2v2ing with her. This is not an exaggeration. You would be 2v2ing with her in dual lane. You would die. Your teammate would die. You'd go back to base. You'd walk out of base, and your tier 1 tower would be dead by 2 minutes. It was incredibly obnoxious how much damage she would do to tower, and it was all just because of her passive. When she was released, also, Polly would work on her too, so she would even one-shot into the mid-game, into the late game with Polly 2 into an ult. So she scaled well. She was OP early game, which led her into being a very good comp god. She saw a lot of play in ADC. She's seen a lot of play in ADC. She's probably the most played mage ADC of all time. Olorun's a bit newer. Kronos has kind of died down a lot recently. And Freya had metas where she was one of the worst characters in the game, if not the worst character in the game. So Sol's kind of been that stagnant. This is the solo lane, or this is the ADC mage to play. Because of that, we got to put her in game defining. She's been played in mid. She's been played in ADC. And finally, she's at a spot where she's not just stomping ranked games. Because even when she was a bad comp god, she would win ranked games from her pressure alone. In my opinion, I think she's a pretty boring god to watch because she just autos stuff in front of her, and the autos just do way more damage than you kind of expect. When she was played last year, meaning Season 8, she would just build mannequins in ADC, and you would kind of just lose the 2v2 into her because she would just do more damage to you than you would do to her, and then she would heal up any poke you took, and it was really frustrating to play against. So I have this vendetta against her almost, where I'm not a fan of her at all. Sol, game defining. Unfortunately, we got to stick her up there. Next up is Chiron. Chiron kind of flashes in and out of the meta a lot. He has metas where he is the best hunter, metas where he is pretty irrelevant. But I think mostly through his career, he's been a very, very good hunter, very good mid laner. Season 2, Season 3, he saw play as an ADC and a mid laner. He fell out a little bit in Season 4, Season 5. And then he came back Season 6, Season 7, Season 8, and now he's getting played a lot. Chiron is like a supportive ADC in terms of having a cleanse on his one and then a heal in his passive, which also gives power. And I think it's very unique in what he does. No one really fits that archetype of being like a more peel-centric ADC. And I think it's really cool that he fits it and that he is able to do like supportive stuff in his kit. And I always like that when your character does something no other character does. I think that makes you unique, and it makes you a lot cooler to be played and a lot cooler to watch play. Also in team fights, when Chiron has his ult up, you just know that at one point he's pulling up that bow and he's going to be sniping the back line trying to one-shot him. And it's cool just watching him try to just one-shot people. I like Chiron. He's good. Chiron, great character. Amaterasu's always been just a good character. I can't think of a single meta where it's like, yeah, Alma's bad, don't play her. She's always been like good to like great. Season 2, Season 3 Worlds, she was played a lot. Or sorry, Season 2 Worlds, she was released at the end of, so she wasn't able to be played. But Season 3, Season 4 Worlds, she was played a lot. She has a lot of comp, strength, a lot of burn potential on objectives with her passive and her 1. She brings team-wide safety with her 1 also in terms of speed. She was played in support a lot by Milzy. I've tried bringing her out in support. She is super fun to watch, super fun to play. And I think it's cool just how her character works. Sometimes when people haven't seen her played in like a week, a month, something like that, 3 months even, somebody will pull her out and be like, oh yeah, Alma's in the game. And she's actually in a very good spot. Like if you get to late game, she is one of the best late game warriors to have. And I think she fits that niche of being a warrior that isn't great early and then scales well into the late game. No other warrior really has that niche of just being that late game monster. Usually that's a guardian that you play in solo lane that's not great, but scales well. Alma fits that guardian archetype in solo lane where it's, yeah, I'm not great in this early game, but if you get me level 11, 12, 13, 14, I can 1v5 the backline. I can peel out the team. I can do objectives. And now with this, that weed whacker build, what was it? I think it was season 7, season 8, something like that, where she would just build Death Toll and then like 5 attack speed items. She was so fun to watch. I love Alma. Alma, great character. Ajax always wears his Alma sweatshirt. I approve, Ajax. There it is, a little look at the Season 2 God releases. Probably the most top-heavy God release season we're going to see for a while. Maybe ever, because all these characters are just so OP. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think about any of the gods specifically. If you guys want to see like a Rat rework back to his old one, or maybe a new god that kind of uses Rat's old kit. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See you soon.